Good day, folks. This is Greg Judy at Green Pastures Farm. Today, my special guest is Kevin Fulton, and Kevin and I go back a long ways. He's from Nebraska. He has a ranch there, and I've been to Kevin's ranch many years ago. Kevin and I, we've done a few conferences together in the past, and Kevin, tell me a little bit about your history and where you're from and what you got going on in Nebraska.
Well, I was born and raised on the farm I'm on now, and so I grew up working on the farm, and my father came there in the 1950s and put together the farm that I'm on, and we started doing rotational grazing in 1972. That was over 50 years ago. There wasn't really anybody doing that back then. So my dad was progressive and very conservation minded, and so I got kind of learned about a lot of stuff at a young age.
Yeah. Well, I know you had you do some today. You've got some organic row crop that you do, corn and soybeans. The cattle. I mean, back in the heyday, you had a big herd when I was there. You were doing like 1,200 or 1,300 head.
Yeah, I grass finished several thousand head. At the peak, we had 1,800 head of cattle on grass and 500 head of sheep and goats and 400 laying hens running behind. And I guess people would consider me one of the early pioneers in the grass-fed movement, where I was finishing large groups on irrigated pastures and working with some of the bigger grass-fed beef companies and selling truckloads at a time. And it worked pretty well for us. But and since then we still do a little bit of that. But I've moved into some organic corn, soybeans, wheat, hay, a lot of cover crops and.
So you're north and west of Grand Island, Nebraska?
Yeah, about 60 miles northwest Grand Island. We're in the Luss Hills region of central Nebraska, which would be just south, about 40 miles southeast of the Sand Hills, which is a very unique region of Nebraska.
So when I came to your farm, we were doing a conference somewhere. I don't remember where it was at, but Terry Gompert was there.
Oh my!
And I remember that night you had Terry and me and you, and there was one other fellow I don't remember. Kevin's got this beautiful log cabin. It's just massive. Huge logs. I don't know where you got those darn logs at.
It came out of Montana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Setting up on this beautiful hill overlooking this ranch, and Kevin has another pastime that he's done many times for a lot of years. He's a weightlifter. And in your earlier life, you went to college and actually trained at UMass. You were a coach there, weren't you?
Yeah, out of high school, I went to Kansas State University, got a degree in animal science, and then later went to graduate school at Colorado State, got a master's in exercise physiology. I worked as a grad assistant strength coach at Colorado State, and then got the job at the University of Massachusetts. At that time, I was the youngest head strength coach in Division I college athletics at the age of 29. And I went out there and I was in charge of 24 varsity athletic teams and did that for a while. But I just always wanted to be a farmer when I grew up, I guess. And so I eventually, 30 years ago, I came back to the farm and took that over and was farming conventionally and got really disillusioned with that whole regime. And about 22 years ago, I kicked all the Monsatans to the curb and quit using chemicals and fertilizers on all 2,800 acres that I was managing I owned with my family members.
2,800?
2,800 acres, yeah. And it was mostly grass, so it wasn't. I had about 500 acres of cropland and the rest 2,300 acres of grass, and a lot of that's native grass, native prairie. We've got prairie chickens out there and old wagon trails, sod dugout sites. There's Indian campsites, in that area. So
you were telling me you had 100 on that prairie. There's like 150 different species of plants.
Yeah, wildflowers, forbs, woody plants, and different kinds of native grasses
and legumes.
Yeah, and legumes, native legumes. There's a great amount of diversity in plants and also in animals. All the way from insects to mammals and birds, and
it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Kevin gave me a story. I never forgot it. He actually was over in England I'm not sure what you were doing over there. It was a vacation or you went with a weightlifting group. But this guy, they did a story on him. You can go on the internet and find it. I found
Scotland.
it. Scotland. It was Scotland. And it says, American farmer lifts the rock. Tell him that story.
Well, I'd gone over to Scotland and competed in the World All-Around Weightlifting Championships and And I won that competition, got the best lifter award in my age division. I was 41 years old at the time. And then we went up into the Highland area and lifted. Became the second American and the 14th strong man in history to lift the legendary Denny stones, which are the most well recognized or most famous lifting stones in the world. A lot of strongest men in the world have gone over there and attempted to lift them, and some of them have, and some of them haven't. But I guess it's kind of unique because I was, just a farmer from Nebraska training in a 100-year-old barn on my farm, and I wasn't probably supposed to be able to lift them, but that was one of the highlights of my lifting career. And like I said, I was 41 at the time, which is kind of past the prime for most people. But I did my best lifting in my early 40s.
Yeah, that's incredible to me. I mean, I've been in this guy's barn. It was an old dairy barn, wasn't it, at one time?
No, it was a horse. I mean, the days of horse, so the horse stalls are still there.
You ought to see his lifting equipment, though. It's nothing fancy. All the
primitive.
All the dumbbells and everything in there was made out of concrete. You had concrete weights with steel bars on it, and he had all these sheets taped up on the wall. And Kevin actually trained a lot of the high school football players out there, and just all the different repetitions that you made him do.
Yeah, and I had a lot of girls trained. I mean, about half girls, half guys. And
but they did it winter coats. They had winter coats on. It would be like 40 below out there.
Yeah. I mean, I had a girl one night said it exceeded the teenage American record in the squat, wearing a hoodie, and she had mittens on, and and she could see her breath because we didn't have a heater, and then she went to the national competition and broke the American record, and so it was kind of a unique environment. But I think I had kind of a unique way of pushing kids to motivate them to reach what was past what they thought their limits were.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew that they could do more, but they didn't know it. But I helped them get to those points, and that was very gratifying for me to work with those young kids. And I had kids coming from, some of them would drive 30, 40 miles one way to train in my barn.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't a fancy
lifting
area. It wasn't heated. It wasn't cooled. It was just a barn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've known Kevin a long time, and one of the things I remember one of the stories I wanted him to tell it. And I know I don't want to make this too long, but Teddy Gentry invited this guy to speak at the Graze Fest, which was the original. I think there was only 2 Graze Fests, and there wasn't anymore. But Kevin was a speaker there. He was brought there to talk on grass-fed meats, the health part of it.
Yeah.
Well, you got kind of conned in. You brought another fellow there. His name was Kaz, which was
Bill Kazmaier.
Bill Kazmaier.
Yeah.
He's one of the strongest men in the world.
He's 3-time winner of the World's Strongest Man competition, and known as one of maybe the strongest men to ever walk, God's green earth. So he came down there and he did demonstrated some feats of strength. I gave a lecture on the health benefits of grass-fed products, and he was one of our customers. I was working with a company that raised or grass-fed beef. I was producing cattle for this company, which is now U.S. Wellness Meats, and they were supplying that to some of the top strongmen in the country. And he was one of them. He was kind of retired at the time, but he was working with ESPN as
just
a commentator.
A beast of a man.
Yeah, and he's a legend in this world of strength. He's a legend.
So Kevin.
So what happened was he didn't finish the story. I want him to finish it. So Kaz asked him to get up on stage.
Yeah.
He said, let's show these people some strength stuff. And Kevin's just a farmer. He hadn't been training or anything. And they go into this contest of taking, this is a napkin, but let's just say this is a 6-inch frying pan, all right? So aluminum frying pan.
Steel.
I'm sorry. Steel aluminum pan. Steel pan. And you all did this. They rolled it up like that. They rolled it up like a damn napkin. How'd you do that? The guy asked you how you did that. What'd you tell him?
Well, there's a secret to it. The secret is strong hands. I mean, really, really strong hands. And that's from product. I started working on a farm when I was 5 or 6 years old. I mean, my dad worked this pretty hard, and when you're doing physical labor, you develop, really strong hands and really strong grip strength. And that's why I was able to lift the Denny stones, because a lot of people couldn't hang on to, to the rings that are attached to the stones, and their hands gave out. But that was my hand strength never ever failed me ever on any of the lifts. It's always my back or my hips or my legs probably. But
Yeah.
so that was kind of my ace in the hole.
So him and Kaz both rolled up pans, just like that, brand new steel pans.
Ruined them.
To this day,
Yeah,
I still can't believe it. It's crazy.
So-
Yeah, I've done that quite a few times at presentations since then. Rip big phone books or.
What's a
roll
phone
steel.
book?
Yeah,
Can't find those anymore.
yeah. I ripped a Las Vegas phone book one time and a half. It was about that thick, probably.
Just ripped it in two.
Yeah.
So let me just ask you a quick question. So what are some of the benefits of grass-fed meat while we got you here?
The beneficial fats and conjugated linoleic acid, which has anabolic effects, and can be associated with, helping with disease prevention for a lot of different types of ailments. The proper ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids, and it's kind of interesting because in graduate school I had a my academic advisor was a guy named Dr. Lauren Cordain, and he had done research where he looked at the fatty acid profiles of wild ruminant animals, deer, elk, and antelope. So when I came back from Massachusetts, I reconnected with him and said, we got to do a study, compare my grass-fed beef to these wild ruminants. So I can tell you there's not going to be any difference, And,
Yeah.
and he said, he agreed to do that. So we did a study. I took 100 and some bone marrow samples out to Colorado, and we analyzed those, and we did a study, and there's no significant difference between grass-fed beef, the fatty acid profiles, and wild ruminants. Because, if you give them the same type of diet, then, of course, the wild ruminants that he used were grazing in the Rocky Mountain region. Now, if you use deer in Nebraska, and they're mostly corn-fed, then that changes things. So,
Right,
keep
right.
that in mind.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was kind of
that was interesting.
very interesting. So that's one of the research papers I got co-authorship on. So that was kind of fun doing that.
Well, Kevin, if folks want to find out more about your journey, what you're doing, I know you're on Facebook a lot.
Yeah,
Would that
on
be just
Facebook.
under Kevin Fulton?
Yeah, or I'm on Instagram, or you can simply Google Kevin Organic Farmer, and you can start finding stuff. That's
Okay. Kevin gives a lot of talks around the country, and you've been at this a long time. You were one of the pioneers in this whole thing.
I kind of started down the path of regenerative agriculture about 22 years ago, I guess, around 2002.
Yeah.
So I've been at it a while, and it's just been a very interesting journey. But I say I would never ever digress back, and it'd be a huge digression to go back to conventional farming practice. And you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Just because you see it, in all your travels and stuff. It's just
Well, you and I were looking at a video tonight that a friend sent me of a guy farming in Nebraska, no-till, and my buddy was grass farming right next to him.
Yeah.
And you can just see all the soil being washed up against this grass farmer's fence. But the one thing you picked out right away is like, great, listen to all the birds on your buddy's farm.
Yeah.
There was birds just singing in the background.
Yeah.
And out on that field, there was nothing going on.
Yeah. And one thing I try to impress upon people is that, even what I do on my farm in Selms, Nebraska can have an impact, far-reaching impact, because my farm goes through the Clear Creek Valley, which is connected to this river, to that river, to eventually the Missouri and the Mississippi, and ends up in the Gulf of Mexico. And we got that huge, algae
Dead zone
down there, and that is a product of farmers as far away as my farm. So, and I tell people, you can either be part of the problem or you can be part of the solution. We have that choice as land managers.
Yes.
And I think that's the key, and
as consumers, we should be looking at those farmers who are helping attribute positive as opposed to negative.
that's a very good point.
Yeah. Use your food dollar and reward the people that are doing it right.
You vote 3 times a day. Every
time you eat.
meal that you eat.
Yeah. Kevin,
Hey,
it's been a pleasure.
great.
I've been thinking about you. I've been following him a little bit on Facebook, and I'm like, I wonder if I'm ever going to see Kevin again. This guy calls me up, or you emailed me and said, I'm coming through your area. And it's awesome.
Yeah, so we'll get together again. This won't take so long next time.
That's right.
Get through here again. You got to come back up
I'll
to the
come
farm.
up that next time I owe you a visit.
Yeah.
So thanks again, sir.
All right, thanks.
Folks, on the way out, if you would hit that subscribe button, I'd appreciate it. And we'll see y'all down the road.